It's important to understand the legitimate reasons the majority of the House is against change, is against consciousness, is against education, is against healing, is against sanity, is against science, and wants nothing to do with this at a small level or a big level. It's important to understand those votes. However, a very small number of people have brought most of the changes that have benefited all of us, women voting. They faced the exact same issue. 100 years ago, the majority thought women were being obnoxious to demand this. We're still pissed at African Americans for actually expecting us to acknowledge that a century of trauma, shame, sexual abuse, and institutionalized slavery, the equivalent of having one's psychological body hacked to death with a machete, should just heal with no scars and no compensation. Wouldn't it be wonderful? And wouldn't it be nice if Dane, having put up with 6 years of psychopathic, ignorant stupidity by the entire organization, in the community, the facilitators, the board of directors, and the team, would just, okay, fine, it was a bad choice, we fucked up, now get the fuck out of here, we've got to teach a new workshop on love. It's the same pattern. It's been going on for thousands of years. So the first step is ownership. The second is understanding the politics. And it's not out there, it's in here. I've had to work very, 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 very hard to get the majority vote in me to make this video, because this is not normal. You have never seen this video in your life anywhere in the country. Why? Is this an unintelligent video to make? Is it really too much to ask that a public nonprofit professes to teach love and sexuality actually has a minor degree of responsibility and competence in these areas? Is that really so outlandish? It's never happened in the United States before. Therapists knowing what they're doing? What's the world coming to? This is rare because this cult exacts an incredibly high price on anyone behaving this way. Psychologically, financially, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And that price nearly killed me. So who gets the vote against this massive cult majority? Well, it's simple. I understand that I have been pushed into corners of sociopathic pain, betrayal, loneliness, shame, suicide, incompetence, hypocrisy, more shame for talking about it, more shame for being different. And I've watched this go on my entire life. It's painful. I don't want to live in a cult that treats the healthiest people, the most honest people, Julian Assange, Edward Snowden. God, we got to kill them, telling the truth about the corrupt power structure. I don't want to live in a cult where all you have to do is speak up and advocate for a minority that has been sociopathically bullied, and find that you're in the firing range because you're going against the cult norms. And so you stay silent and let a part of your soul die. I don't want to live in that world. Well, how do I win when I don't want to live in that world and I don't get to decide what you choose? I just get to decide what I choose. Well, it's simple. I go for the world I want to live in. And if I die because no one will join me, then I don't have to live in this world surrounded by reptiles because I'm dead. But I don't want to live in this world. And I don't want to live with myself in the clear, lucid understanding that the reason I'm not fighting for the next victim is because I'm too terrified of the sociopathic machine guns that line up to shoot down, because I'm too terrified of the bully. Well, as soon as you're willing to face death for something you believe in, first of all, you're liberated, you're an adult. And secondly, you can die in peace. And thirdly, you can like who you are. So that's my bill. Now, not everyone has faced death enough to be at peace with something like this. Not everyone has felt the amount of pain that I felt at the effect of profound psychological, sexual, and financial abuse. And many people have felt and dealt with a lot more. But if you'll notice, the fear, shame, laziness, and pain votes that give most of the high community the majority vote to do nothing or attack the victim, they all shift with court. And it's sad because what we're saying is we can't rely on the empath in the group because it's a minority of brain function in sociopathic cultures. We can't rely on the empath to do what needs to be done here because the empath asks a few simple words. Who's in the most pain in the circle? How can I help? That's all it takes. And the empath attends to the wound that is owned as our wound. No one can do that with a voting structure built up with narcissistic, ignorant, shame, reptilian agendas, because those kill off the empathic brain. Who's in the most pain? How can I help? You want to be a human being? It's very easy. And when you don't know how to help, you read a few books, you ask, you try. A reptile cannot do this in 100 years. It takes the empathic brain. The only trouble is we have knocked the empathic brain offline with most of our people. And so it's not there to vote. It's the reptile is saying that they're going to kill us. They're going to kill us. They're going to kill us. Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. Well, you get enough trauma coming at you, and you say, "Yeah, you're probably right. I should listen to you." And suddenly, the reptilian brain has the votes. It's not, in that sense, it's not crazy. It's sociopathic, but it is sane to behave in a reptilian way if the goal is to survive in a reptilian culture. That is completely sane. I just don't want to live in a reptilian culture. Nor do I want to live in a culture that promises love and behaves like a reptilian culture. It's very clear in a community circle where sexual and therapeutic abuse has occurred where the most pain is. It's in the victim. So the empath says, who's in the most pain? How can I help? The sociopath says, get that pain out of here. This is what I'm going to do to survive. Well, the virus of trauma is endless when it is infected in a sociopathic environment because it never heals. Sociopaths cannot heal psychological pain. They can only cause it. It takes a different level of intelligence to solve the problem created by reptiles. So pushing the vote is not hard in this scenario. It's just very painful. Because as this moves towards court, which is the last resort, now it flips. See, the politics of the situation says, oh my gosh, you were saving time reading his emails, but now you've got to spend more time reading the emails and paying an attorney to read the emails where you broke the law. Darn. If only he would have shut up, you know? And the shame. You see, you were hiding all of this because you were ashamed. You didn't want anyone to know. But Americans love to hear about court details because they're reptiles. And that's what they're interested in. So now everyone's going to know because you lost the court case. And you thought it would save money to not give a refund to a recorded sexual abuse. You thought it would save money. So that part, let's save money as much as possible, voted don't give a refund. But that was one of the tipping points that left me feeling, no, I'm not leaving that protocol in place for the next victim. Because I understand that what's been done to me is a benchmark for High's protocol of what it will do every single time a facilitator sexually abuses a participant for money. The benchmark of we don't even give you a refund for the abuse, it's so insane and cruel. It's like I wish I could find some way to give it to them, whereas to pretend that they really cared about this. But it's too crazy. So now I've got to spend $30,000 on attorney's fees to avoid a $5,000 refund? My goodness, we're not winning, are we? We're spending more time, more shame, more money. And the good part of us that actually gives a damn, it's been suffering in the facilitators and in the community the entire time. Because the healthiest part of us is sick to death of greed, incompetence, chauvinism, undervaluing the feminine side, exploiting the vulnerable. They're sick of it. Secrecy and lies, abuses of power. Those at the top never take any responsibility. They're sick to death of it because they're healthy. And so going to court, suddenly you've got a majority, right? Because a newspaper press, a documentary. Now you can side with your sexual predators and the group that enables them. But now suddenly you're in a minority because the media likes court cases. They don't like email exchanges of, half-known organizations. They like court cases. So as soon as this goes to court, all of the no votes of the facilitators and board members, because their names get linked to every single protocol they were silent about and enabled, just like Ghislaine Maxwell. She didn't protect the women. She enabled the abuser. And she wasn't even a public nonprofit board member. See, high sets up all of its board members to lose by asking them to stay silent about this. Well, finally, with the court case, after the Me Too movement, you start to look pathological and insane to say, oh no, those are great people, the ones that you should donate money to these people. They're the ones you read about in the paper sexually abusing their participants and advocating that no one writes a police report so that nobody will know that they're promoting sexually abusive facilitators. And I'm associated with that. See, now it gets easy. Then the crowd swings away from the facilitators, and the very thing that they said they were lying to protect, because every censure of information, everything hidden, is a lie of omission. You see, the OxyContin family didn't straight out say, we never did any studies that it was addictive of this, and that, and the other. They just published the positive stuff and hid the negative stuff. So millions of Americans are suffering today due to their professional negligence, to their valuing of money over human lives, which is the kind of thing reptiles do every day. So then finally, the small minority is free. That caring part is free because the court has lifted all of that off. It's just sad when that is, it's kind of a forced vote. It's not out of the empathic brain. The empathic brain is who's in the most pain, how can I help? There's not one member of the high community that asked that question. And when I volunteered, this is what you need to do to help. No, don't want to do it. It makes sense. It's empathic. It's consistent with High's mission, but it's going to take energy. It's going to make us look bad. And I'm not going to do it. So why this video? Well, first of all, it's a peace offering to the high power structure, because whatever happens from this point forward, every single board member and facilitator now and in the future will be linked to these videos and data online. It's a permanent record. And the reason for that is simple. It's very important that people who elevate themselves, who agree to be leaders of public trust, are not Ghislaine Maxwell's, are not the people who think about their own agenda, but actually care enough to learn how to do their job, particularly when you're protecting people's lives. People get killed through complications of therapeutic and sexual abuse. So, you see, I'm not relying on empathy. That's not there as a majority vote. There is not a single board member who is outreached. I've met obfuscation trying to connect with the board members to save their skin. Because if you're a reptile in a public nonprofit, you're a reptile in your business when public safety is at risk. When you're incompetent at something you volunteer for, you're incompetent in your own relationships. And if nobody knows, least of all you, how incompetent you are through a pattern of willful ignorance, people get hurt. Now, there's nothing unusual about the facilitator or board of directors' behavior. It's normal in America. What's unusual is that they think they're in a position to teach about love, intimacy, and sexuality. So that's gonna sting, because the most competent people in our cult do not want to hire or be in relationship with someone who would cover up sexual abuse in this role. And I'm with them. It's uncomfortable. It's not pleasant. It hurts. Because I like many of the people involved with high leadership. I'd happily be friends with them if I didn't know all of this. They are cruel to themselves, and they're cruel to the public, and they're cruel to their futures. And the cruelty to themselves begins by refusing to respond and understand this. Because the courts are not going to be generous to this degree of sociopathic cruelty. And every single person in the high power structure is enabling or actively participating in this. So this, it's not pivoting because of empathy. It's pivoting out of fear. That's the dynamic, that you have to engage the reptilian brain. If you meet someone raping a 6-year-old girl, you already know you're dealing with a reptile. It's not like, oh, you're hurting your feeling. You think they don't know that? You meet someone raping a 6-year-old girl, and you want to help the girl, and you're dealing with a reptile by definition, meaning the reptilian brain is dominating at that moment. You have to appeal to the reptile, and this is what's so ugly about this. I understand that I do not have the majority vote of the empathic brain of a single member of the high community. The reptile has the vote. So to protect other participants, some of whom have already contacted me about being lied to and shamed and dealing with these symptoms, I'm securing the vote by pivoting the environment to where the reptile, see, anyone associated with this who can run and deny culpability will do that. It's just High didn't tell them they're going to have a website linking them to this for the rest of their lives. If they make amends, great. That will also be on the website for the rest of their lives. But this is not the amends of an empath. This is the amends of a 30% empath and a 30% reptile that's now considers it in their best interest to do a settlement to make some changes. And that's just very painful to recognize, because it says we're not about love. We're about expediency. So it's painful. It's heartbreaking, in fact. But that's the politics of this situation. That's the politics that gets bills in Washington passed. That's the politics that gets my mother to stop abusing my sibling. And that's the politics that's going to protect the next victim, because the protocols in place guarantee a percentage of victimization. What isn't clear is how much. And the only reason that isn't clear is that the willful ignorance of the facilitators is at such a fever pitch that I have never, in 30 workshops and over 10 years, received a survey, not once, not even a metadata survey, which is free to send out by email, asking about the abuse at the hands of facilitators, of team members at High, asking about pros and cons, asking for feedback. I haven't gotten that survey. I've gotten surveys about how to make the workshop better, which I've answered, but nothing then is public. So there could be 1,000 people wrote emails to the facilitators about being raped or this or that in the community or whatever over the years. But none of us has ever heard it. And we can't be at choice until we understand the statistical risks associated with the protocol of a lifestyle that is taught as love from high.